Welcome, everyone. My name is Michael Rearden, and this is Coaching in Session. And today we're going to be having on a guest, and we're going to be talking about wellness, balance, life coaching, all of that. The conversation that we are going to be having today is a little bit different than our typical Coaching in Session. Typically, Coaching in Session is going to be a politically correct podcast. My new show coming up, Mindset OD, is going to be similar to this a little bit, but it's going to be a little bit more raunchy on my side. I do my best to be politically correct with guests that I have on for the podcast. But for Mindset OD, it's going to be like full throttle on. You better come with the facts. So today we are going to be not only learning about the facts of well-being and, of course, coaching, but understand the difference in a person, the difference in what type of coach you're going to be working with. Sometimes you're going to be working with a coach who's very loving and affectionate. Sometimes you're going to have a coach that like, hey, let's get this done. You get to decide what type of coach you want. There is no one saying that you need to have a loving coach or you need to have a more militant type of coach. You get to choose what type of coach you want. You know your personality. I know people who come to work with me, they say, Michael, I need your personality. And I know people are going to be working with my guests today and they're going to say, I need your personality. The personality that you pick, and that's why we have Coaching in Session, is because there's just so many different coaches. You're going to have a different well-being coach, different life coach, different mindset coach with a different personality that might work better for you. That's why there's all these successful coaches out there, because they found the audience that they work well with. I know what audience I work well with, and I bring on other coaches that work with different audience, heck, even the same audience. There's no scarcity mindset here. The goal is you. The goal is to make sure that you're in the best place possible. How can we create more for you? How can we create a better for you? So today, my guest, Rachel Boehm, she's going to be helping us understand our health a little bit more and then our wellness a lot more. Because we might think that health and wellness is going to be something that we have down pat, but I can almost guarantee you that we can make some adjustments here and there. There's going to be some aspects of our life that we can modify, that we can adjust to make some great strides, not only for today, for tomorrow, but then 10, 20, 30 years from now will all be because we made some changes today. So let's get into that interview with Rachel and myself. Welcome, Rachel Boehm, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on. And today I have you on as a health and wellness coach. And there is a lot of health and wellness coaches, but let me tell you, there's only one Rachel Boehm. So the work that you do, I know is going to be special because how you approach it is going to be unique. And I love what you're doing. I checked out your website, all of your socials, and you are on the right track to making some amazing progress in the world. Without me telling everyone who you are, what you do, in your own words, tell the people what you do and how you help them.
Sure. So I think I shared that I have a short version of that and I have a long version of that. So I'll share a little bit of both, right? Because the short version is there to intrigue and the long version is there to tell people what the heck that actually means. So the short version is that I help people kick ass in life and look years younger doing it. And so what does that mean, right? When somebody asks, well, you mentioned I'm a board certified health and wellness coach. And I agree, we all bring our unique little special sauce to what that means. Everything is life. You know, it's not work and life. It's work, it's personal and professional. And we're whole people. And well-being, health, it's holistic. And so when I say I help people kick ass in life, what I mean is looking at every dimension of their life, their finances, their workplace, their personal relationships, their professional relationships, their mental health, their physical health, all of those things. Why should we be limited to kicking ass in just one of those areas, right? They're interconnected. And so I help people take inventory of where they are, determine where they want to go, and figure out how we can affect change in that whole circle so that they can thrive at the same time in every dimension. Because again, it's one person, one life, and it should all go together.
I think sometimes people, they think of wellness and they say, oh, wellness is health. So, I have to eat healthy, nutrition, I have to go work out, but wellness encompasses everything. Like, how are you feeling? It's important that people understand the difference between that because we can't just lump something all together. For example, if you live in a house, you put all the stuff you own in that house. But in wellness, it's like everything, right? Your career, your relationships, all of that's under one roof, but we do need to be able to separate that. And I think sometimes people have a hard time understanding that there is a difference and then that every area needs a different type of touch or a different type of attention. How do you make wellness something that people can become more aware of. So it's not just that blanket statement of health and fitness and nutrition, but rather the whole aspect of life.
I think through conversation, I have different analogies that I pull from. One that came to mind first, the way you were describing it, is it's sort of like those old Trivial Pursuit pieces, right? Where you have the different pie pieces, they all come together to create the whole. The other is, and on my website, people can find this, it's the 8 dimensions of well-being. And it shows you have your physical health, which might be nutrition and sleep, although sleep bridges, and that's sort of the point, right? Everything bridges. But you have your nutrition, your sleep, your exercise, your movement, because those are different things that people typically think of, as you said. But then you also have your financial, your purpose, or your spiritual. You have your social connections. You have your occupation. And what I think is really interesting about the dimensions, the wheel of wellness, as they call it, or the wellness wheel, is that in it, occupation is separate from intellectual growth. Not because you can't have intellectual growth in your occupation, but because you still need something outside of it to move your brain, right? Like taking, I don't know, like for me, French classes on Duolingo, right? Not related to my job, but it brings me joy. It boosts creativity. It fires all these synapses so that it actually makes me indirectly better at other things that I do. So a lot of times it's, conversations like this, where you can really go in a little bit more than maybe an Instagram post or a tweet and say, here's what I mean when I say it's holistic. The other analogy I use with people is if you think of a spider web, right? If you pull just one strand of that web, the whole thing shifts with it, right? Or if you see it in the wind, right? Just a little breeze pulls the whole thing together. And that's life. As if, for instance, if you don't mind me expanding on it just a little bit more, this might be helpful. So say you have somebody who's okay, they're early in their career, they have their fitness and their health routine, like everything's good, they're on the trajectory, right? And then what happens? Maybe they get married. Okay, so that's an adjustment. Okay, but for the most part, they're still able to kind of eat healthily and pretty much get some sleep. And maybe their social life changed a little bit, but they're still getting out there having fun. It may just look a little different, and their career is taking off, and then they get a promotion. Okay, well, so now they have longer hours, but their finances are going up. Right. So if they were to take inventory there, okay, their finances are going up, their job is going up, but you might see the relationship side is starting to suffer a little bit. And the physical health side is starting to suffer a little bit because they're spending more time at work. So maybe they're working out 1 day a week and they're not eating so great because they're like so meeting. They forget to, even schedule in time to go to the bathroom, right? They forget to eat. They're so stressed. They hit the drive-through. They're too tired at the end of the day to work out. They don't sleep well enough, so they don't want to work out in the morning. And then that extra time they want to spend with their spouse, so their spouse doesn't get mad at them for not spending time with them anymore. And then then you throw a kid in the mix. And then now you got to work even harder because you have all these other things. You can't quit the job because then you have insurance to pay for the family, which pays for the house, which pays for the thing that you never see because you're never there. And it just creates this cascade. And so I love conversations like this because it's really when we can dig in and say, it's not just this woo-woo holistic thing. It's everything in your life affects everything else. And everything comes with a trade-off. So let's find the trade-offs that work best for you based on where you are now and where you want to go right now in your life. And in 5 years, that could change again. And so let's regroup, let's touch base, let's see what happens and what we need to fix, what we need to tweak.
I love the analogy of the spider web, like how you just move one strand and everything shifts. And then you are completely right about the aspect of we can create a post, we can write a blog, heck, we can even write a whole book and we still won't have the same conversation that you and I can have today. Because when you bring two people, we have a pragmatic conversation. We don't know what we're going to get. That is life. We don't know what we're going to get every single day, but there is some order, right? So we have 24 hours in a day. How do we utilize those hours? If we are working that career, we get a promotion. Now we have less time. We have less of those 24 hours for the other things that we were doing. So what's going to give? Is it going to be our family? Is it going to be our relationships? Is it going to be our personal life? Right there, I think some people, they have a hard time creating balance, number one. And then number two, giving up something that they have been doing. So if they love going out every Friday with their friends, it's kind of like a pastime. It makes them feel good. And now they have to work late on Fridays. It's like, man, like which one do I do? And the aspect of balance is not so much of everything in your life is balance. I like to think of it as a percent. For me, I work about 60%. My family is about 30, and then everything else. That's just how I like things. Now, certain people might say, I don't like working that much. I'm going to work 40. I'm going to give my family 50, and then everything else is 10. you can create that balance. That's how I associate balance. Because if you just say, oh, you have to make sure that work is balanced with your family and then the family is balanced with your friends, I mean, you're going to find yourself unhappy very quickly, because is work the same as family? Even though work gives you the paycheck to, have a house and to take your family on vacations and things like that. It gives you the resources and the ability to do those amazing things. But what is more important? And I think there's going to come a time in everyone's life where they have to make that choice. What is more important to me? How do you help people find balance, and how do you help people find what's important to them?
Quick and dirty of it is you have to know who you are first before you can know what to do about it, right? Before you can create balance, you need to know who you are. And so that starts with who are you, what do you need, and then how do you get it? It goes to, who are you at, like, your identity, and then those values. So I was listening to a podcast recently, and they were talking about these role transitions or this identity transition. So when you have, say, an athlete, and this was the context of the podcast, who has retired and is stepping into kind of retirement life, even if they're the ripe old age of 35, they've been this star athlete their whole career, but now who are they? And you can struggle with that. And so you have to figure out, again, who am I now? And what are my values now? Similarly, we see that identity challenge with military members when they retire. But it could be true for anybody in the working world that has only worked, right? Or at least mentally, if not literally, where their entire identity has been subsumed by their career. So we need to step away from this 100% identity associated with the career. And if you or any of your listeners have heard the video, I recommend watching it on YouTube, where the professor takes the mason jar to his class. And he basically the point of the video is you have to fill up your rocks, which are your core values. And then you fill up your pebbles, which are the other, secondary important things. And then you fill up the sand. You have to fill it up in that order, because if you fill the jar up first with the sand, there's going to be no room left for even the pebbles, let alone. And so working with clients, that first step again is, who are you? What do you need? And then how do we go get that? And how we get that is creating essentially an owner's manual, right? If anybody is a parent or, a niece or just a, awesome local auntie that babysits, you know that every kid has a routine and it's pretty strict, right? Parents are pretty strict about it, right? They know that, okay, if bath time is going to take 30 minutes because, 10 minutes is fighting with the kid to get in the bath and 10 minutes is fighting with the kid to get out of the bath, and then there's 10 minutes of actual bath time or whatever it is. So all of that is factored in, and they work backwards from bedtime. We have to do that for ourselves. We have to parent ourselves. So if you know that you need 9 hours of sleep, you have to be up at this time, work backwards. That's your bedtime. So you probably need 30 minutes to transition. So, okay, well, so then when do you need to eat? Okay, so when do you need to work out? What does that look like? How realistic is it? And to your point, what might you need to give up or trade off to make that happen? And is it going to happen every day? No. But you could be at a 9 out of 10 most days with practice and commitment. And so we start, again, who are you? What do you need? How do we get it?
Yeah, I always like starting, where are you? Because once we know where you are, then we can see, okay, what would you like next? Because I think sometimes people will say, well, this is what I would like, but then it's not even close to where they want to be. So subconscious mind comes in. It's like, oh, that's a lot of work, buddy. I don't think we're going to get that done. Right. So then eventually you're going to hit with some resistance, and then you're not going to show up. And if you are just not having the right balance in your life, for example, like using the analogy of the rocks, the pebbles, and the sand, you might have a lot of sand in your jar, right? You say, well, I'm going to do all the little things first, right? I got to make sure that I have this car, I have this house, I have these clothes, I have these types of friends, right? That's a sand. But then we can get into the big things, right? Family, values, beliefs. Pebbles might be maybe career, passions, things like that. But we have to understand that life is not always about one or the other. We just have to figure out, well, how much do we want of this, right? What is life? And one of the things I saw in your profile, and I wanted to bring this up because it's amazing. I was like, wow, this is lovely. It says, understanding the difference between living and being alive. And I was like, whoa, that's powerful. The difference between living and being alive. And I think a lot of people right now in our current world and our current mindset, everyone is just alive, right? They're just going through the motions. They go to, school, K-8, Some might get a GED, some go through the whole high school process. And then they're like, okay, now I'm 18. What do I do? Military, workforce, or they're going to go off to college. Whichever path they take, right? They're just going on that process, right? So they're done with college now. All right, this is the next thing, right? I got my career. If you're in the military, we talked about it, the identity that you create in that military when you leave. What do? It's like, well, I don't even know what to do anymore. I was in the military for the past 7 years and they took care of me because that's what the military does. They take care of you. They tell you where you have to go. Not a lot of thinking on your end. And then you finally have to create a new identity, your own person. The same thing is if you just go off into the workforce, right? Are you just a worker? You're so much more than that. We're always so much more, but we fall into that sense of identity. How do you help people understand the difference between being alive and just living?
Yeah, that's the really unique and important thing of a coach, or aspect of a coach versus a consultant. And for those that aren't familiar with the differences, the consultant is hired to come in and tell you, oh, here's what's wrong, here's how you fix it, right? And they may even do it for you, right? The coach, part of our ethics, at least to those that have gone through the board certification for health and wellness coaching, which if anybody is curious, it's the NBHWC. You have to say that acronym slowly because there's so many letters. The ethics that we subscribe to is that we have to honor the client's autonomy, meaning you have the answers within you. There's just a lot of fog in the way, preventing you from seeing your path forward. So I don't come in and say, oh, you want this goal? Here's what's wrong. Here's how you're going to do it, right? There's some education involved for sure, but it's really about giving you the time and the space and a little bit of guidance to help you discover the answers for yourself. Because otherwise, if I do the work for you, the problems are just going to keep coming up, right? It's give the fish or teach to fish. Coaches teach you to fish so that you don't hopefully ever need us again. That's my goal anyways, is to just put myself out of business one client at a time.
Yeah, no, it's 100% true because we don't want people just to be returning clients like, all right, you need your fix again. All right, come on, give mommy or daddy some more money, right? It's not that, right? We want you to be self-sufficient. We want you to be effective and to start to live your life in abundance rather than needing something always, right? Feeling inadequate.
I'll go do something else. I'll go get a bakery somewhere. I don't know. I'm not worried about what I might do next.
But the issue is we will always have a job. And as sad as that may be, or, we have a mission to help people. We want to start to understand that we can make some big changes in people's lives. But the issue that people are facing right now is that they don't give themselves the opportunity to show up in their life. When they're younger, they're kids, and now they have an option. They have an opportunity to either show up or to simply say, well, this is life, circumstance. So many students or young children fall into that circumstance. And when they fall into that circumstance, it's like they are not equipped to handle being an adult. Most of the kids today are going to grow up not knowing how to be an adult. They're not going to know how to balance their checkbook. They're not going to know how to balance their relationships. They're not going to know how to balance their career. Balance, right? They're not going to know how to do those aspects because they were never taught those aspects. They're told history, science, geography. And even if you ask them how many continents in the world they are, they'll probably say like 17. So it's like, what are we teaching them? What are they learning? They're not learning how to be effective adults. We're giving them a set of knowledge that they have to regurgitate. And does it even go into the long-term memory banks? Maybe, maybe not. It might not even be important to them. So we're teaching them a set of knowledge that's not important. I saw it firsthand. I was a teacher. In the schools, you will see, if you're there for any extended period of time, what's happening as they grow. Not saying that they're not wonderful children. They are, all of them. They're growing, they're growing, they're growing. You see that potential within them. But then you also see how much more potential is latent, how much they're not showing, how much they're not giving. And it's not their fault. It's just that they're not made aware of it. It's like, okay, well, this is how much I have to do versus, oh, this is very challenging. I don't know if I can do it, right? It's always approachable for them when a child should be given, oh, this is so crazy. I don't know if I can achieve it. And they achieve it. You know how their mindset would shift? Our subconscious mind is not fully developed until like 11 or 12. So that means we don't have to worry about our subconscious mind. Teens, you would have to do it a little bit different because they already have that self-identity, that talk, that internal dialogue that we have to adjust our teaching methods. That's why they have elementary school teachers, they have middle school teachers, they have high school and college teachers. There's a difference there, not because of the ages, it's because of how we learn.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to say, and older adults too can change their subconscious mind, right? It's those ideas of, okay, affirmations and adopting a growth mindset and being more optimistic, which is not the same as toxic positivity. You can make those changes later in life. I completely agree with what you're saying, but I don't want anyone to hear this and think, oh, well, I'm grown, so I can't, I'm going to use that crutch. I've long said that if we could just teach emotion management or emotional intelligence in schools and, do something for the adults to catch them up. But if we could start doing that in schools and also have like a life skills class. And I think some places are doing it, but I think it's some colleges or maybe community colleges that are doing it. That needs to be more prevalent. And then you mentioned, that's hard. Like people's response to that's hard. For a really long time, I thought because something was hard, it meant I couldn't do it. Because I was surrounded by a lot of fixed mindset teachers, and it didn't matter what my parents were telling me. My parents are amazing. And you were smart, you were capable, you are. But my default was, you were my parents, you have to say that. Right? Not realizing how lucky I was. But if we can teach them how to persist, to build resilience, to say, hey, through hard things comes greatness. And there's a difference between quitting and changing your mind. Right? There's a difference between grit and changing your mind so that they don't feel like, oh, if I change my mind, I'm quitting. So if we can teach them all of these things, I feel like the world would just be a better place.
Yeah. So the aspect of subconscious is there's different levels of the subconscious as we're growing. So when you're younger, you can use your subconscious mind differently. So a teacher's going to understand that and they're going to address certain things in a certain way. I just had an episode on the podcast on this. So talking about the differences of the subconscious mind and with a youth versus an adult. An adult can change their mind anytime. They can learn a skill at any given point in their life. They can be 50 and learn how to play piano. They're not too old. Like that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? You can always teach a dog any trick you want, right? That can happen anytime, right? The power of neuroplasticity, right? We can change the way we are wired. We can change the way we think, but it's more difficult for an adult or for that person who has finally given themselves that tippy top of identity and their purpose or their passion. And their subconscious mind is already now going on. That's why there's always conflict in the home when, I take it back, not always. A good majority of time, there's conflict in the home when a parent has a teenager. Why do you think that is? It's because the subconscious mind has finally begun to form, become solid. So now it's no longer mom and dad teaching me. I know all the answers. When you're a teen, you know everything. I remember when I was a teen, I knew everything.
Same. I absolutely knew everything.
Why? Why is that? It's the subconscious mind is finally formed. So it's saying, hey, we have this identity. This is what we know. This is what we need to follow. So that's why we have that mentality. And it's not until 18, 19, 20, around that age where we start to realize we didn't know everything because we just had 6 years of us learning things and growing, and all of the things we thought have maybe come to ruin. For example, oh, I'm in love and we're going to get married and, this is my partner for life. And then you realize, oh, he or she cheated on me or we broke up. You learn, right? You have that heartbreak or whatever. So you have learned the subconscious mind can be malleable. So there is a point in our life where it's kind of like we are just stuck in it. And from there, how do you approach that? That's why middle school is one of the toughest or most challenging age groups to teach. Not only because of the hormones, but because of that mentality of the subconscious mind and how they think. So the way you do it is you make it so it's kind of like, okay, this is the direction you're going. I'm not going to forcibly move you from that direction. I'm just going to see if I can adjust you without you understanding I did it. It's crazy, right? Middle school teachers, kudos. I taught middle school for a year and a half. It was a learning lesson for me because I went from college to middle school and I was like, okay, this is big. And then after I went to elementary school and it was so easy, I was like, teaching is easy in elementary, but even some teachers can't even handle that. And you talked about emotional intelligence, and that is one of those aspects. It's like, I think about, it's like if we teach emotional intelligence to our youth, what long-term effect would that have? And then you said something great. You said building resilience. Is it the same, right? Do you believe that emotional intelligence is the same as building resilience? Or do you believe that one maybe is greater than the other? Or do you believe that each has their own common place?
They're definitely not the same. They are different. And I think they help each other. I think you need to teach both, and there's a spiral effect, right? So they're going to nourish each other. If you think of, and they're both going to enhance, psychological and even subjective well-being, right? So if not, and there's many aspects to emotional intelligence, but even just focusing on how do you process emotions? Like, how do you name your emotion and sit with it to let it pass? There's research that shows emotions last about 90 seconds unless we harp onto them, which most of us do, right? I was speaking with a woman the other day. She's a coach and she focuses more on the DEIB space. And we were talking about this. So many of our problems boil down to this inability to just sit with our fear. Why are you afraid of telework at your organization? Because, I don't know, it could be a number of things. It could be, well, that's challenges your power dynamic. It could be just simply, this is a comfortable place. You know where you're at right now. Like, you know how things work right now, and the fear of the unknown. And we could go deeper with that, but that's not the point necessarily of this thread. But how do you sit with your emotions? How do you name them? How do you process them? How do you know that they're okay? We need to teach people that. And in doing that, that's going to help build emotional intelligence, and it's going to help build empathy and sympathy, and then it's going to help build resilience.
So the aspect of building resilience, I like to think of competitive nature, right? Maybe this is just like man talk here. We put someone in a sport. We don't have a sport that is, oh, everyone gets a participation trophy, right? We have a clear winner and a clear loser, right? Building resilience when you lose. Do you like that feeling of loss, right? You just, got beat. You're like, all right, we lost by 50 points. That's a lot of points in any sport. You learn to build, right? Get better. We grow from that. But if we don't have that resistance, do we grow? I mean, it's a conversation, definitely, because we can say that everyone's a winner, everyone's going to be an achiever, everyone should understand their emotional state. But then at the same time, what separates the higher achievers from the low achiever people, right? Is it because just a commonplace mentality, or is it because those people who want to be successful are just more competitive in nature?
Well, I kind of think it depends. It depends on what you're talking about, right? So if you're talking about, say, in a sport where there's a contest, okay, well, winning is the objective of the game. Therefore, there's a winner and a loser, right? But if you're talking about life, well, I think that person defines success and winning for themselves, right? So you can win battles and lose battles and still win the war, because maybe the war for you, if we're going to use all these different analogies, right? Winning the war is, okay, satisfaction, a successful or satisfying life for me is at the end of my life, I am surrounded by tons of people I love, and maybe I didn't make as much money as I could have otherwise, but I had this incredible life and I had these amazing stories and I had very few regrets. But for someone else, it's like, I got millions in the bank. I was voted this, I was elected to this, and I have like 2 friends and I'm good. Right? It's what is winning to you? What is success to you? Right? I don't really care what your answer is as long as it's like moral. Just as a fellow, as another person living on this planet, hopefully. But it's moral, but you do you, right? That's the idea of you do you. What I care about is, did you choose it for yourself? Or are you taking it back kind of full circle when you mentioned the difference between being alive and living? What I meant by that was, are you just playing the playbook that other people gave you? Are you living life on purpose, or are you living by default?
We sometimes give life that winner loser aspect, right? You can win at life, and this is how you win. You have to have this much money in your bank account. You have to have this many friends. You have to have this type of house, this type of car. Or we can give the identification or the idea of success our own definition. That means Success for me can be living in the forest by myself in a cabin, and I'm perfectly content. Maybe I want to throw a dog in the mix, so I have a dog too. And I'm like, cool, this is success for me, right? I get away from all of the hoopla of the city and all of the nonsense that's happening in the world, and I get to be at peace. Some people just want to be at peace. Some people just want to go fishing every weekend and just take it easy with the boys. Some people want to go out and turn it up with their friends and be loud and meet a bunch of people. There is no wrong way to live life. And when we talk about wellness, it's not just saying, well, this is the way you be well. It's understanding, well, how is wellness to you, or what is wellness to you? Because wellness can be a different path. You can have extreme emotional intelligence. You can have zero emotional intelligence. You could be completely okay with it. So we're not trying to say, oh, you need to be this way, or you need to focus on this aspect more, or this is what is lacking. You get to decide what you want. You have one life. You get to live it the way you want. Now, I'm with you. I'm all about positivity. I'm all about growth, right? I don't look at people and look down at them. I look at people and I say, how can I help you rise, right? Be more. That is how I view things. I don't believe we should just purposely put down people for the sake of putting them down. If you need to create some awareness, for example, let's say that we're best friends and, for example, you're not showing up in your day. I might say, hey, Rachel, like, I don't want to come off as, a jerk or anything, but I see in areas that I think you could be pushing a little bit more. And it's not that I don't see that you're a mom and you got all these responsibilities, career. I see that too. But as a friend, we can see if someone's not showing up in different areas. For example, I had a guest on. We were talking about one time one of his associates or friends told him that, hey, are you an alcoholic? And he was like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not an alcoholic. But he was. He knew he was. It's just that he didn't want to tell him that he was, right? So friends can see something that's happening in our life. And so we do have to be able to know the difference between if someone's attacking us or someone's trying to help lift us up.
So my scope stops at clinical diagnosable issues such as, diagnosed depression, anxiety, addiction. So I want to first say that. But, as someone who has worked with and quite frankly experienced disordered eating, there are certain things, and even just, a person, an adult living in this century, there is a place for friends to check in and put a little thing out there for that person. But I think you really need to be mindful of the difference between how you would want someone to approach you and how that person wants to be approached, especially if it's something other than, here's your day-to-day, like, hey, I think you're not like, you don't seem like yourself. Like, you don't seem as energetic. If it comes off combative, even though you think it doesn't, it could seriously push back any progress that person might be making that you cannot see. And so it's really important for people to understand that sometimes even the check-in can come off as unsolicited advice, and it's going to cause a shutdown. So really just showing up, being there, asking the questions like, hey, how you doing? How are things? Tell me a little bit more about that. How might I be able to help? Well, you know what? I'm here to help. Let me know. And you just being that constant presence is a way to indirectly kind of raise it. And sometimes the indirect is actually the better approach. It's the more effective approach.
So here in Coaching in Session, this is a perfect example of why I have other coaches on, is because we have different personalities.
Exactly.
And I always,
that's why I led with that.
Yeah. And I always tell people, you find the person who's going to match your personality. I'm very militant. Either you get it done or what's really happening, right? I just had a guest on and we were talking about that, where he had a mentor and he called his mentor and he was complaining about all this and making all these excuses. The mentor hung up on him saying, you know what? When the real person comes back, you tell him to call me because I don't know this person. Hangs up on him. That's like the tough love aspect, right? Not saying everyone needs
what happened? Right? There's a difference with that. So that relationship by nature has that dynamic in there. Your best friend doesn't necessarily have that mentor coaching aspect built into that relationship. Right? It is assumed that I'm going to go to my coach or my mentor or my trainer and say, here's the problem. They're going to be like, all right, let me help you solve it or whatever. Your different personal relationships may not have established that. And so it could come out of nowhere, right? It's unexpected. There's also a difference between somebody bringing it up to you and you just bringing it up with them. And then the last thing is I've gotten a lot better. Dare I even say pretty good at asking somebody when they just start going, do you want a solution right now or are you venting? Like, I have thoughts. Do you want them or do you just want to talk? I'm here either way. What do you want? Because I'm a coach, like I'll go. Like, I'll do it. But as a coach, I've learned to apply that to my personal relationships, and things have been so much better because of that. Because sometimes people just want to be heard. But then to your point, other times people need help finding those solutions. So again, it's just, okay, I might want this in this situation, but is that what they need? Is that what they want?
Well, let's let's make it personal for a second then. For example, I'm married. If my wife is doing something that is, let's say she's drinking a lot more, going out gambling, not taking care of the kids, things like that, should I bring it up to her or should I just allow her to keep doing it and then ask her, do you want to talk about it or not talk about it?
I don't know. I don't know her.
But do you know your husband?
Right.
So if you're married, for example, if you're married and you have that relationship and he's going out, he's drinking and gambling and he's coming home stressed and maybe smelling like perfume, do you bring it up to him?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But
so
I think in that relationship, it's, a marital relationship, everybody's marriage is different, but in mine, right? Those kind of conversations are integral, like are vital to the health and longevity of that relationship. What I was saying was that if my best friend just randomly came up to me and was like, Rachel, you're performing like shit lately. Like, what is up with you? I realize that life is hard, but like you need to do better. I would not be friends with that person anymore. That's what I was responding to, right? Like that conversation can be had another way that is more helpful. And even if I had a mentor and they came up and they were like, your work is pretty shitty. Sorry, your dog just died, but step it up. You can do better. I would probably not work with that person anymore. Having nothing to do with maybe they're right, but that's not the way I need to be spoken to, nor is it, I think, respectful. But that's me. So I think the point is that everybody is different. There's direct and indirect, and know who you are, right? And have that emotional intelligence to know who that other person is so that you can communicate the way you need. It's almost like the 5 love languages, right? Which is also the 5 languages of apologies. Everybody needs to hear it in a different way and maybe at a different time based on the context. So it's just being aware.
And the aspect, though, of what I was saying is a best friend, right? Someone who has made it to that level, right? You have acquaintances, you have friends, and then you have a best friend, right? That best friend should be someone who's held to a higher regard than just your typical friends. If your best friend comes to you, they know you typically pretty well. They probably even know how to speak to you pretty well, too. So they're not going to come out too harsh. Maybe sometimes they will, but most of the time they're going to come out proper. So, okay, I know her personality or his personality. I'm not going to be too abrasive. I'm just going to say, hey, you know what? Like when that had happened, I believe, we could have did it a little bit different. What do you believe? Right. We can bring it that way. Or they might be just one of those full throttle best friends. And if you have that type of best friend, you're just attracted to that. Hey, that sucked. I don't want to do that again. Right. So it's, again, the different types of personalities, the dynamics, but it all leads us full circle. Again, we are trying to create that balance, right? So you have your family, your relationships, friends, et cetera, et cetera. You're not going to have people in your life that are going to be negative downers. You even said it. I wouldn't even have that person in my life, or we wouldn't be friends, or I wouldn't work with them anymore. So it's that balance there, because it's like, you know what you want. And I even said in the beginning of this, you could rewind it. We have to know where we are. All right. If we don't know where we are, then how can we figure out where we want to be? And you have to know what you want, because if you don't know what you want, then guess what? And I said that when we were talking about the sand. So all the different aspects of well-being and wellness is a full total circle of our conversation today. You have a different personality. Cool. Understand your personality. Work with a coach who has that personality. You want to work together. You're not going to want to have friends who maybe go against what you believe in, or et cetera, et cetera. For example, let's say you support a certain community, but your friend doesn't support that community. And let's say they don't support them to like the point they're like very hateful and disrespectful to that community. Do you think that friend is going to be beneficial in your life long term? Maybe, maybe not, right? I'm not going to say yes or no. You get to make that choice. Again, you can have whatever types of friends you want in your life. But I remember when I was growing up, my mom and my dad, they can see people, as parents should. They can see what kids are doing good, what kids are not doing good. And then they might say, I really enjoy Johnny, but like Kevin, like he's bad news. And then you're like, what? Like Kevin is a great guy. And you're trying to defend Kevin. But then later on, we learn that Kevin had all these issues, things like that. Not saying we can't be friends with Kevin. It's just that we learn the place. And you can have people you love in your life, even family members that you love in your life. And you might say, well, I have to separate from them because of this or because of this type of behavior. There are just so many different aspects. But the conversation of wellness, though, like getting back to that nitty gritty, is there's so many aspects of our life that we have to master. Do you believe that one person can master all of them? Or do you believe that they should focus on maybe certain areas?
I think you always start with one area, right? You can't, again, chase 20 rabbits at the same time, but you could even chase two if they're moving in the same direction. And that's that idea of it's holistic, right? So you might want to focus on establishing an exercise routine, but that might require a little bit of tweaks in a few different areas, but the goal, it's one goal at a time. The chase for mastery is a constant, continuous, lifelong chase. It's sort of the idea that the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, right? The journey to mastery is going to be never ending. And so that's why it's important to fall in love with the process, not just the destination.
And the process of life, is there a process someone should follow, or is it something that they should create themselves?
You need to create it yourself. It's why I do only personalized coaching. At least for me, there's something to be said for some of the cookie cutter programs, and to be totally transparent, I'm working on one, but it's limited to certain aspects of somebody's life, and it doesn't say here is your prescription, right? It says here's how you find your prescription, here's how you write again your owner's manual, because some of the tools are similar, some of the problems are universal, but the answer is going to be specific to that person.
Yeah, you and I actually have a lot of similarities in mindset, even though we have discrepancies and the emotional aspect of it. But I think that just comes to gender. It's like, I think a different way. I think very much like a man. When it comes to the emotional aspect of it, I can do that. But then at the same time, do I want to do that? When my son falls over, and if because, like of his own volition, I just look at him. But if he was doing something and he really got hurt, then I understand emotional, right? I know the balance, but at the same time, we coddle our children as parents. We want the best for them. And I saw it firsthand as a teacher. Again, I seen moms go in there, typically not dads, typically it's moms going in there to the office, fighting for the kids. My kid deserves an A, but the kid got a B. I'm sure the teacher is just not going to maliciously attack your kid and saying, well, like your kid is a B+ student and here's the B, right? The teacher can provide all the stuff. All of a sudden, nope, I don't believe it. So it's a big problem with the principal, teacher, all these meetings. And then I remember early on, it's like 2012, the principal went to the teacher and says, is this really worth it? And guess what that kid got? He got his A because the mom fought for it. So I always said, like, we as parents sometimes give ourselves one of the most dangerous phrases we can ever give ourselves as a parent is, I'm going to give my child a life that I never had. Because if we do that, guess what happens to that child? They don't grow up to be powerful and strong like you are. And I always say, well, I want my child to have as much difficulties as I had growing up. There's going to be things that they're never going to experience, people breaking in, robbing us, no electricity, no water in the house. I mean, he's not going to live like that because I'm not going to live like that. I already live like that. So I have a different barometer, but he's going to learn that life is just not all butterflies and gumdrops, and everyone can be, I guess, emotionally intelligent, understand your emotions and understand how to control them, especially for young men. Men are very energetic, right? They have a lot of energy, right? We have to learn how to control that. Not saying that he can't learn how to, take care of a dog and pet the dog nicely, right? That aspect, the balance there.
But then understand, if he has to tear some stuff up, he tears some stuff up. Again, guy talk. How I would treat my daughter, totally different. Totally different. It's just because of the dynamic. How I would raise a boy is different than how I would raise a girl. How I would coach a boy is different than how I would coach a girl, because I coach both people different, and I coach relationships. So when I'm helping people with their relationships, I ask a simple question: what type of relationship do you want? You want traditional or do you want modern? They typically say they want traditional. I said, okay, cool. Then we go down that rabbit hole of the different aspects. They might say, well, no, I want modern, or I want a mix of the two. That's all we do. And then I tell them what type of person that they should be going with, give them all the red flags of the people that they're dating at the time or they're talking to, and then they find the relationship that they need. It is very simple. It's all mindset. Everyone has a different way of coaching. Everyone has a different way of being. But the goal is to find someone that works for you. Like I said, you and I actually have a lot of similarities. It's just that we have a lot of energy in the areas we're passionate about. And it's a good thing. And I love your passion, Rachel. I want people to feel that too. And I want people to reach out to you who have that same passion, that same similarity and energy as you. Give us some last words, and then please tell the audience where they can find you.
I think, just to sum up the entire discussion, everything again boils down. What we were both saying is know who you are. And I'm really big on analogies. So often the analogy I use is for working with a coach is that you are in a foggy forest, right? If you imagine, I'm sure you've hiked, and you've been in that environment where the fog is coming in and you know which direction. There's several paths, and at the end of one of those is the destination in mind. But maybe the compass is a little broken, the fog is in the way, and you're just not quite sure which path to take, right? So that's, to your point, know where you are. And the coach comes and says, let's know where you are, let's figure out who you are, and then let's unpack and figure out the tools that you have that are working. I'm going to help you do all of that. I'm going to help you tweak and give you more tools, and we're going to get you home. We're going to get you to that destination. So if I could just leave everybody with one thing, it would be find somebody to help you figure out who you are and what you want. And then the rest will start falling into place.
And where can people find you?
Everything is linked from my website, which is rachboehm.com.
And I would definitely put those links in the description box below so people can easily find you, reach out to you, follow you, and learn more about the work that you do. Because the conversation we had was a roller coaster of talking about wellness, talking about the different types of personalities a person can be, but it all leads to what? The better you, the best you. And I know Rachel's going to be a great asset in anyone's corner. She's going to be loving, caring, affectionate, and she's going to want to see you do well in life. And that is what any coach would want for their client. And I know Rachel has that. So I want to thank you, Rachel Boehm, for coming on Coaching in Session. Great conversation today. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. I'd like to thank my guest, Rachel Boehm, for coming on Coaching in Session. As you can see, it was spicy, right? So definitely different than my typical episodes of Coaching in Session. But I really wanted to put this out there, not only as a preface for my new show coming out, Mindset OD, which will be a live show. And I'm going to be bringing on people just like you, my listeners, who can come on and we can talk about something, and we can disagree about something. We can have our own opinions about something, and there's no wrong answer. It's just your belief, right? I mean, if we tell ourselves a lie long enough, it becomes our truth. So we have been given a set of examples, or we might have had a different life experience. So that is what we have known. I remember I was watching a video. It was a guy, silver spoon in his mouth, but his first traumatic experience in his life was someone littered at the park. And that was a traumatic experience for him. I'm not going to judge him, right? That's his life. That was his trauma. But for me, it's like, if someone litter in the park, I look at the street that I grew up on, there's just garbage there. In front of the homes is garbage, right? There's a ghetto. That was life for me. But for him, it's different. So his experience is different than my experience. So I can't say that his experience is any less than mine. It's just that I grew up different. And we all are going to be different in the way we think, in the way our mindset is, in the way we acclimate to different conversations, and of course, how we acclimate into the better self. Sometimes you can just say, come on this way, come on this way, come on this way. And everyone's like, okay, I'll follow. But then sometimes you have to take someone by the hand and say, let's go. Let's say you have a child and they're crying in the store. We have two options. We can remove them from the environment, or allow them to have a tantrum. It depends. I taught special ed. We do both. Depending on the child, depending on the resources we have, the ideal thing to do is to remove the child from the environment in special ed. In a regular classroom, meaning you are not identified as special ed, and a kid is just uncontrollable, they won't leave, everyone else in the class leaves. And that one student who is not listening stays in that class. So it's a different dynamic. Which one do you do? It depends on the situation. Sometimes you might have to remove your child from the grocery store and just take them out of that environment. Or sometimes you just let them go through whatever they're going through and they learn. Now, growing up, I don't think they ever left me in just an environment to sulk and to have tantrums. That doesn't happen. Not in my community or not in my culture. So if I did wrong, when I got home, I got that butt whooping, not promoting violence, but there was discipline aspects from my behavior that wasn't appropriate for the environment that I was in. And I learned. Because if I didn't learn, it must be an appropriate behavior, huh? I can just go in the store and start spray painting or throwing things down because I'm upset. Okay. Even if I regulated my emotions, I'm mad. I taught special ed. We teach them about emotions. And you know what they do? They ball up their fists and they say, I'm mad. So, okay, cool. And I have a few options. And I mean, I can bring it up and I can say, let's talk about it. Or I can divert. I can tell them the expectations. Because if they're mad because of something, there's a cause and effect. Why are you mad? I'm mad because I can't be in the computer. Okay. Well, we can go on the computer later, but right now we have to do our math. Do you need some help doing your math? Yes or no? Okay, cool. Right? We didn't have to add gasoline to that fire. Sometimes they're like, I'm mad because I can't be in the computer. Well, right now it's math time. We have to do our math and after we can go on the computer. No, I don't want the computer now. Well, we have to do our math and then after we can go on the computer. But if we don't get the math done, then there will be no computer. Well, I'm not doing my math. Okay, well, the expectation is that you do the math right now and then later we can go on the computer maybe. They don't want it. They start flipping your desk. They start ripping up the classroom. What do? Now, if you're in a special ed classroom, most likely you're certified to go hands-on. You put them in the ALA room. So you figure out what you need to do. There's two paths. Now, I always say you can use your verbal jujitsu, use your words, right? Just talk. You don't have to be hands-on or violent with people or grab people by the hand. You can talk to them. I could talk to someone just like this and make them feel amazing. And I can also talk to someone just like this and make them feel like crap. Now, I don't want to make them feel like crap, but I can make them feel aware. I remember when I was in my student teaching for a school, I just finished my elementary level first evaluation. I had two. I did well in the high school, not a problem, right? Because they're big kids, right? Easy. But when I went to elementary school, different ball game, different beast, different things that I have to learn and no excuses. So I wasn't ready for that first evaluation and it showed, right? So the professor came in saying, okay, well, we need to make some adjustments, things like that. My cooperating teacher, he says, hey, like we have to get this done. We have to get this done. Like not like, hey, I think you should get this done. This will be a nice thing to get done. No, we have to get this done. And I went home and I felt defeated. I felt defeated that day. And I said, what am I going to do? All right. Went home and I was like, barely wanted to eat, but I was hungry. So, I ate a little bit and I just like went in my room and just sat there and just thought. And then I was like, okay, I have to get to work. I have to be ready. From that day on, game time, every single day. How can I win? How can I show up? How can I be better? And that's what I did every single day. And when the professor came back for the next observation, night and day, she was shocked. And I literally mean this, like if you talk to my cooperating teacher, he would say shocked. As soon as you took the kids down to the teacher, she was talking about you saying, oh my God, I can't believe this is the same person. My cooperating teacher told me, you have to get this done. You can do it. I'm there. I can support you, but you have to get it done. You have to show up. It wasn't easy love. I felt what he was trying to say to me. He could have said it, hey, Michael, you know what? You did a great job. You did a great job there. And I just want to let you know that there are certain areas that we can make some adjustments in, but overall, really great job. All right. Tomorrow we're just going to, let's work on maybe one of those aspects that you might have to work on to be a little bit better. But, overall, just the way you are is fine. I wouldn't be amazing today if he said that to me. I have to. In your life, you're going to have to figure out something. My dad told me one of the greatest lessons that I'll take all the way to the grave. Handle your business. You have a choice. Handle your business or not handle your business. We can baby people. We can tell people, oh, everything's going to be okay when things are not. We can say people did their best when they didn't. I'm not in the business of lying to people. If I think you can do more, I'm going to tell you can do more. If I believe you did everything you could and that you were equipped and we did everything we can go in knowing we did good. Because in your life, when you get on your deathbed, guess what's going to happen? You're going to either have regret or have no regret. You're going to ask yourself, did you live to the fullest every single day? Did you live the life that you wanted to live? And again, it goes back to the success that you're looking for. What type of success do you want to leave? What type of legacy do you want to have? You get to decide that. But it's important that you understand, again, health and wellness and the balance of that. Do you want to be a workaholic or do you want to be a family person? Sometimes you have to wear different hats. Sometimes you have to be not only the caregiver and the nurturer, but you also have to be the person who's going to set the rules, that's going to lead, that's going to preside over all the negotiations and the processes. So yes, it's important to understand your emotions, and then it's important to understand what you want your emotions to do for you. Some people just want to live in their emotions. Some people want to use their emotions to propel themselves. And I thought for a long time, just adding emotional intelligence into schools would be the answer. But there's always going to be someone. There's always going to be someone that you can be very kind. You can be very emotional. There's going to be a time when you have to be assertive. You have to be the person that people know, okay, this guy means business or this woman means business. That's why in a business, if a woman's leading, she has a very masculine energy. She doesn't have a feminine energy if she's leading, because she understands a certain aspect to emotional intelligence, that there's certain emotions that are going to get the results that I'm looking for. And then, of course, there's going to be certain emotions that are going to be more appropriate to certain types of scenarios. So depending on your scenario, depending on where you are in your life, you're going to need a different type of emotion. And if you are in that area where you need a wake-up call, ask yourself who you are as a person. If you are a person who needs that loving and tender touch, get yourself a coach who's going to have that loving and tender touch. If you find yourself always needing someone to give you that kick in the butt, find a coach that's going to give you a kick in the butt, because you need someone who's going to hold you accountable if you're not going to do it. And there's so much more to life than just sitting by the waysides and waiting. And we have to make sure that we can live life rather than just being alive. You get to make that choice. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com. And I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.